This is the Ponderous Brick Thinker with a castle update. And the update is more sketches. So in the previous episode, I left off with this wall sketch. It still needs some work, but it has some promising features. Now I want to explore different ways the walls are going to be constructed in this castle, so I'm going to choose this area next. And you can see the LEGO people have anticipated my next move, because I am going to talk about a topic, and that topic is preconceived notions. The thing is with preconceived notions is that it's basically a guess. It is a direction of what you want to do. The problem is, if it's a bad guess and then you stick to it, it becomes a bad situation. So this is as early as I have in terms of the project to have a preconceived notion. So I am going to work through a preconceived notion. The end result will be seen in the final form of the castle, but what I am going to do is kind of demonstrate how to work through a preconceived notion. It is going to be a guess, but it is still a direction. So for the Tower of Immersion, I am going to refer to Rivendell from Lord of the Rings in terms of being open space. It's nature literally among and through, so it's going to be a very open building. Unlike the Tower of Understanding, where it's very segmented, compartmentalized, so that it is science in a category, but this is going to be its opposite. The Tower of Fun, I think, is going to be a combination of both, so that it is kind of be open, but also enclosed, not so much to enclose, but to have something exciting hiding on the other side of the wall, basically. I'm going to still work through that, and that's why it's still a sketch, but that's the intent. And now I have not committed to a color, form, but it is kind of the direction I'm going to take. And then because it's so early in the process, I can still think about it. I can say how this is going to be kind of evolving so that it becomes the best form it can be. The other thing I need to juggle with is that these towers are going to be removable. For the Tower of Understanding, I can see how it can be lifted up off of the base and be protected as I move it around. For the Tower of Immersion, and if it's going to be open air, that means the structure is going to be light, very flimsy potentially. So it is going to be something to be thinking of as I design it. And at this early stage, I am going to start looking at the structure as to how the tower is going to come together, especially for the Tower of Fun, because it is rather big, and even lifting all of this together is going to be risky. So it is probably going to be in components. Probably each corner will have its own lift-away area, and the central tower, or the central part, is going to have its own piece. Maybe even pieces. Maybe it's going to be chunks. So that way it's not all maybe in one box, but we'll see. Because it's rather tall. But for right now, let's look at this wall. I gathered bricks that I think will be useful for this sketch. If you notice, I have brought out the browns, other colors, and the greens. In part because I think this could be a good opportunity to figure out what the original architecture looked like. And part of that, there is still going to be a flowing green hill down this way, so I'm going to need to build up the green over here in some way, and also to use the other colors to see what is the new architecture on top of the older one. How is that going to look? What is a possibility? And part of that is also to show what planning can help with. When I first started this, it was using the plates as the basis of what the ground level is going to be of the open space, but also the towers and other buildings. What I did not account for was, how do I say it? The proportion. I have these arches, but I haven't yet seen if, let's say I have this going on, and oh no, it's not gonna work. But with planning, you can make it work, but I didn't, so it's gonna be hard to use these longer arches. I do have shorter ones that might be able to accomplish that part of the task. Let's see, the other thing I want to do, just to put a few bricks here to kind of build up the browns. The other thing is maybe they are the ones who have the slopes going on. It could also be kind of a weathered effect. We'll see if that is convincing enough. And I am going to need to secure that one here because it's floating. It's kind of going in that direction. I do kind of want some of the green to be on top of the brown, so that it's emphasizing that there's erosion going on. Let me put this back. So I'm thinking of leaving it this way and just build up here. Let me see what other colors I have left. So I am going to build up the browns, but I don't think more than 3 levels high. I just need to kind of follow the same pattern I did for the foundation to suggest that there is some continuity. That's where this wall came from. It came from the foundation. It was part of the foundation once upon a time. Now I kind of have this here, which is part of just the organic going with it. The covering I have for the desk is not the best. It is on 2 levels and it's kind of affecting stability, so I might have to rethink that. It didn't bother me on this one because this space was entirely on one. Basically, there are cake boxes, the ones without the windows. But yeah, it seems a bland enough color so that it's not distracting, and smooth enough so that maybe I can slide it around. It's not as smooth. So I think this does need to be brown here to suggest it's an older construction that is tucked away among the rocks. Me having the Lego people so close is not a great idea. Alright, so let's look at what has transpired. Looks very rough. Good, good, good. I like how the slopes are indicating erosion. Now, I think I'm gonna work on the green just a little bit. See if I can get it to a height that makes sense. Oh, Sarah's lost forever. A thought occurred to me as I was preparing to put the greens in place to suggest part of the hill, is that maybe this area used to be a building, a tower or a gatehouse, kind of the fortification before going onto this side across the bridge, and that eventually it crumbled away and the hill eventually took over. Maybe I'll move these steps over here. This used to be the original doorway. These can be the steps that were intended for the use inside the tower. The way into this tower is here, that they cut through the wall, and that it is still going to be overflowing. So it's mixing the idea so that it kind of looks natural. But I like the idea that this used to have a purpose as a defense before going on to over here. And that will let me say, maybe I can build this up a little bit more to suggest that this used to be much taller. somehow. But also, let me put these in place so I remember that the tower or the building used to be here. And the other thought is, was there anything in the blueprint to suggest the structure of the tower? Say, for example, were the corners fortified, were they thicker than the in-between wall? And that's part of the area where I can go next. But I think I'll just put up a little bit of the green to see how this part looks and go from there. It is still part of a sketch, so it can change, but I like how this has a purpose, or it used to have a purpose, so I can kind of build toward it, then build the in-between time where erosion happened and the hill took over, and then the other part will be what the new team did, so that this is not just a platform with stairs, there's some story even within here. Here's a guesstimate of what the original floor plan looked like for the gatehouse / tower. The entry was here, walls, coming up to this platform, and then you can go to the other fortification. It could have been a tower for them too, which will let me do a little bit more brown bricks coming up. But I like how this kind of looks eroded. These are just barely held in place just to remind me that there is a wall, but eventually how the hill is going to have to kind of flow that way, yet still have this staircase, which I think can be, in terms of green, build it high here to kind of suggest it was flowing, but then this team came, cleaned up this area so that there's a pathway between the stairs and going forward. So this green part is going to be higher too. Go down straight here and they come up again. They come up again to suggest that flow. And this is the only cutout in this area. This is temporary. It's just to remind me that there used to be a stone wall here and that somehow, it's going to be eroded away. Here is going to be the doorway to the other tower. So it is just to remind me that there is, this is what it used to be. If there's an opportunity, I could create the ruins, much how I did this. But again, if I want this high and flowing, this is going to need to be higher. So that tells me that this kind of has to be higher so that the soil has a place to rest and be secured. And so maybe it's opportunity to kind of use some of the special brown pieces that I have to build the architecture of the original occupants. I have this corner as a reference, which are slopes and arches. But then again, I might use the same style for the new construction. There's been evolution of styles, but I haven't gotten there yet. So we'll see how that goes. But this is like a starting point. Something like here, make it kind of, it will inform what I'm going to do with this corner. It's not going to be complete, just going to be eroded, maybe held in place by some of the new construction. But, that's the next part to kind of sketch out. So part of making ruins is to hint at what the original building looked like. I did note before that I did not use the arches to kind of give me a measurement of how long and wide the building should be, but there are ways around that. Like that. So that more or less fits. But my thought is this arch is on the outer edge or the outer face, and then it goes inward in detail. Over here, I had it pop out. It was a unique situation. I think it should be done sparingly. But here, for example, if they built up, it would have followed this line and then go inward. So that would be more or less the style that they had. And so I'm going to rearrange this a little bit so that I can more or less make something cohesive. The other thought is trying to make this high enough to be that hill. So it's going to be a two thing at once. This is what the first architecture could have looked like. Here's an example of what could be here. I do use browns, or the same pieces I have used here. The only thing is I probably need dark tan, dark brown. But that's pretty much close to what I have envisioned. So the idea is that it would have been pretty much like right here, following that same level. And it's also 6 bricks high. And if I'm consistent with the first architecture to be that scale, then like what I did here, I can change the scale and make it different. So that is, there's a distinction between the old and the new. However, for this here, I'm not planning on going that high. This will be a reference, and I just need to build a worn down version of this. However, I am running out of time, and I do want to spend the rest of it on the basement for underwater nature. And this, I can still think about this if I want to make any more changes or another version, that then I can start building the ruins here to kind of suggest what was there. But for here, the underwater basement, I want to see how much I can cover with the transparent pieces that I have. I'm pretty confident it is going to be significant, but also there are some surprises that I did not expect when I was just looking at them. But the idea is, if I had a 3D program that would have mapped it out, I wouldn't have to do this, just to see how much I have and, what can I do with it. But other than that, I can just place them here and see how it looks. So that's the next step. I gathered the light blue transparent pieces that I have that might be useful for this tower right here. I did pull out these pieces, but I think these should go for the Tower of Understanding. They're that kind of window. So maybe not those. I do have these super dark blue. They look great, but they're not quite transparent. So there might be used sparingly and probably towards the edges, but we'll see. But that is a possibility. The other one is these, where I was thinking, following along this side, I can use a lot of that area to be transparent, but these are the pieces that fit like this. And so it needs a pair in order for it to, have a view inside. And that's what I want to work on right now. If I can attach these in another way that comes like that, and just by putting it there, it looks like it's possible. Let's see, was it 4 in between? And nope. 3 in between? Not quite. I wonder if I have to go through the half step. Let's see if it will. Oh, it looks like that. Because this width, as it is right here, I believe it can fit within 2 studs. So if that's possible, I'd like to use that. But looking at this, it's ever so slightly off. So it's going to be even less than a 1x2 plate with a center stud. It's going to have to be something even more interesting than that. But how about this way? Uh-oh, my time might be up. I don't know if you can hear the dog collar. Okay. So that's pretty much what I'm trying to figure out. How else can I attach these so that it suggests that it's completely enclosed, but that it's not as it was meant to be. So the idea is to find another way of attaching them that still suggests a complete enclosure and be able to sell the idea that this is a solid membrane that can hold in water. So That's where I'm gonna try and figure out between now and the next episode. See where I end up. But this has been the Ponderous Brick Thinker. Thank you for stopping by. If you like this episode, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you want to see how this project progresses, go ahead and subscribe and sign up for notifications for when the next castle update drops. And see you next time.